Yeah. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the last day of the Passion Week. You can see you're enjoying your free pancake meal. Today we're talking about finding truth. And our speaker is Alex van Nes. I'll introduce him shortly. First of all, it's important to know, we'll say it on the slide, on the next slide as well. If you have any questions, we use Slido. You can send your question digitally, so we don't have to ask for the question, so you can just send them in and then we'll just ask them from the speaker. So without further ado, I'll introduce Alex van Nes. Alex van Nes, he's now 65, has been working as an evangelical missionary in Belgium for over 30 years now, sharing the biblical message with all who want to listen. During the last couple of years, he worked mainly among university students in Leuven and Maastricht, challenging them to rethink their worldview using presuppositional apologetics. He will show that only the Christian worldview can account for all the fundamental life of science. So, Alex, what's your relation to this subject? And the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. How do you find truth? Hello, everybody. If you want to find truth, don't look at this slide because the first lie is there. It's the 24th today. So that's not my fault. I'm blaming him. Which shows how it's important to check everything if you really are looking for truth. Thank you for the invitation. Enjoy your meal. And it's an honor to be here. Usually I walk on the street in freezing cold and rain, but so happy to be in a warm environment this afternoon. Okay, time is very short, so I have to speed up, and I will excuse you if you cannot follow this. If you, at the end of my speech, are completely confused, it's okay. Don't blame yourself. It took me 10 years to understand. Yeah? So my 20 minutes is pretty short. Okay. I work among students, and as Willem said, I challenge them to rethink their worldview, whether it's true or not. But the big question is, what is truth? And this is such a fundamental question for everybody. If you are a university student or not at all, it's important for everybody. Everybody lives on the basis of truth. And the big philosophical question, of course, where can truth come from? What is it? What is it? The time is very short, but you can, we have maybe a few minutes for Q&A afterwards, but otherwise there is coffee afterwards. Down in the Humble, we can talk there as long as you want. I have all the time in the world, being retired. But you're in a hurry, okay. So if you're in a hurry and you cannot stay, take one of my leaflets and you can find my email on my blog. Yeah, my blog is called The Creed of Modern Man. Or better, The Impossible Greed of Modern Man. But that's, okay? You can take one of these. Okay, time is very short, so please take your time to rethink it all, and then maybe next week or whenever you want, send your questions to me. Is that all I have to say? Coffee? Yeah, everything. Right, okay. Let's start with a definition of truth. A definition of truth. Truth is objectively, first of all, it's objectively. It cannot be subjectively. Truth is something that is true for everybody, yes? For everywhere, always, and is unchanging. What I'm talking about here is absolute truth, not personal truth, which cannot exist, because that's subjective. Maybe you've heard about the Christian philosopher, cultural philosopher, Francis Schaeffer, back in the 70s, American. He said that when I'm talking about truth, I talk about true truth or absolute truth, not a subjective opinion or meaning of everything. Where can it come from? Where can objective truth come from? It can only come from an objective source. It cannot come from me or from you. We can know things are truth, but we cannot be the source of it. It must come from an objective, absolute, unchanging source. That can only be the source of truth. Something that will not change. That is true for everybody, always, everywhere, and will never change. And what that source can be, I will talk about later. Without truth, it is impossible to make any absolute statements. But you and I, we make absolute statements every day. Of course, we have to, right? We have to. But that's on the basis of the existence of absolute truth. If there is no absolute truth, nobody of us can make any absolute statement at all. Because you and I, we could be wrong about everything we claim to know. So it's all about your worldview. It's about your presuppositions, your assumptions, your starting points. That's what we're talking about. Very essential. And you use it every day. We will see that later. Without truth, it is impossible to make any absolute statement. The verb to be makes no sense if there is no truth. Because we can only say, I find, or this is my opinion. But nobody of us can say, this is true. This is so. This is reality. Because if we cannot know truth, you could be wrong about it all the time, and me too. See that? So everybody is, especially in Holland, you know the Dutch people, they know everything. They think they do, yeah? And that's the way they talk most of the time. I can say I'm Dutch, but I live in Belgium. So I moved to the Promised Land a few years ago. And thank you for inviting me back in the desert. But I go home back to the Promised Land later today. Many people here are convinced that they, of course, they do not know everything, but they talk. Their attitude is as if they know absolute truth, which is impossible for a man to be the source of. If you meet an atheist and he says there is no God, that's an absolute statement. If I meet that kind of people on the street, I meet them every day, they say there is no God. I say, how do you know? Have you been there? And then it's silent, because you cannot make an absolute statement of something you cannot know absolutely. And university students understand it very quick, yeah? That you cannot do that. You're fooling yourself if you do. I was talking to two guys in Maastricht last week, and in 20 seconds he understood what I wanted to talk about, and he said, sir, there is no absolute truth. And I said, is that absolutely true? He said, yes. I said, you are the absolute truth. Which made him so angry he left immediately, because there's no answer to that, of course. He realized the foolishness of his opinion and his absolute statement, which is impossible to make if there is no absolute truth. So, to make absolute statements, you need to be all-knowing about the subject, or to know somebody who knows everything about that particular subject. But you don't, right? This is a palace of intellectual people, but nobody here knows everything about everything. So everybody could be wrong about everything. This is discouraging. I have the gift of discouragement, I know, but everybody could be wrong. I could be wrong as a human being, because I cannot be the source of absolute truth. So what could it not be? The source of truth, what can it not be? In other words, what is the big question is this: what is your ultimate source of authority that is the starting point of all your opinions and thinking and assumptions? What is it? The ultimate truth. A Christian says God is the starting point of everything. He is the only possible ultimate truth. And his word, the Bible, is therefore the only possible source of absolute truth, because he knows everything and he can everything, which is impossible for us to say. Only he can say that. And in reality, let me state that right from the beginning, in reality, everybody starts from that source. Even when you deny it, you do. Everybody does. I compare it to fish. We are about here, how many people? We are fish in the same ocean. You and I, we swim in the same ocean. But a Christian says, I see the ocean. I acknowledge the existence of the ocean. A non-believer says there is no ocean while he swims in it. That is quite foolish, right? Now, nobody's foolish here. I'm not saying you're a fool, but if you believe that, that's a foolish thought, because you live on the basis of absolute truth. Everybody does. The first thing, man cannot be the source of absolute truth, because if you start with man about any subject, you start with a being, you and me, that have too little data to make any absolute statement at all. As I said before, to do that, to make absolute statements, you need to be aware of everything. You need to know everything. You be omniscient about everything there is to know. But you're not. I'm not. So we could be wrong and therefore not the source of absolute truth. We have too little data to do that. Man is limited in his knowledge and could be wrong about everything that he claims to know. I know there's a popular saying in Dutch, probably in all other languages as well, that our modern culture says that, how you say that, everybody has his own truth. Yeah? That's completely impossible. It's impossible. You have your own opinion, that's fine. And let's hope so together that we still live in that situation the rest of your life, in freedom, where you can express your opinion, which is fine. Freedom of speech, that's a wonderful treasure in our free society, in democracy. But nobody can say everybody has his own truth. Two people, two truths, that's impossible. There's only one truth, the rest is opinion, based on truth, or not based on truth, of course. Yeah? Science cannot be the source of absolute truth, because science is wonderful. This, my little classes here is science. Thank you for helping me to see you better. Yeah, it's technology, I know, and we need it. But science cannot be the source of truth. Science uses truth. It cannot be the source of it, because nobody knows everything. And in many instances in history, science had to admit that they were wrong, because we found new data about some subject. Religion cannot be the source of absolute truth, because religion is subjective as well. Willem and I, we can start a new religion before 12 o'clock at night. Now, he's the technical guy, so he builds the building, I write the book. Which, now, of course you laugh, but because we all realize that it's a subjective game. It's our fantasy. So you cannot start with religion. Many people think that I'm religious. I'm not. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about truth, which is completely something different. Because if all the religions say we have the truth, who's right? Well, they're contradicting each other all the time. So the man, whether he is scientific or philosophical or religiously, cannot be the source of truth. And it's the same with philosophy. I talked to many students in Leuven who study philosophy, and they realize right from the beginning that they are arguing with each other in the faculty of philosophy within a closed box, sitting there in a box, debating and talking and thinking about what might be outside, while there are no windows and no doors in the box. Okay, you can have a wonderful opinion inside the box. My opinion is less or more interesting or not. It doesn't make sense because we cannot know what is outside. A Christian starts from an open box. He starts with God. God is not the conclusion of our intellectual arguments. God is the necessary beginning of our ability to argue at all about anything. This whole university is based on his existence. Now, many people will deny that, but give them time to think, and they will realize it is so. Because science needs three things. We'll come back to that later. So, no man, no science, no religion, no philosophy. So what can be the source of truth? Only God can be, because he knows everything, and he is able to do so. And he has spoken. The Christian worldview is this: there is an absolute God who is 100% in everything, knows everything, can everything, and he has spoken. Francis Schaeffer, the philosopher I told you before, he said he has written a book. It's called He is There and He's Not Silent. If he's only there and he's silent, forgive me your time, let's go home, eat your pancake and go home, right? Then we know nothing. But if he has spoken, this is a Christian worldview in a very few definition. God is there, he's absolute, and he has told us the absolutes. And that is the basis of everything you do and I do every day, all the minutes of your life. That's the basis. Otherwise, we cannot live. Another book by Schaeffer, he said, how should we then live? How should we live? We cannot live. And I'll prove that later. That's impossible. So where do we use truth? Where do we use it? In all the fundamental aspects of life. Everything. The very moment that I'm standing here speaking, and you are seeing me using your senses, your ears and your eyes, yes, to communicate a little bit, this few moments, is based on absolutes. Otherwise, you cannot be sure that your senses are valuable and work and usable. So, let me quickly, because time is short, give you 6 fundamental aspects of life that you use every day and I use every day. The first one is knowing, yeah? Your epistemology, the science of knowing. How do you know things? How do we as human beings know things? Not with your shoes, with your head, right? You do? I hope you do. Otherwise you better quit your studies and go home, right? We need your head. But if there's no God, then the stuff in my skull that I use now to talk to you and you are to listen to me is just chemical reactions. If there's no God, everything is material, then your thoughts, the processes in your brain and my brain at the moment are just chemical reactions. And then the big question is, what is the big difference, the real difference between a bottle of Coke and your head? 0. It tastes better, I know. I hope. A student said it tastes better, but let's hope so. I never tried. Don't try. Don't try this at home. Okay, but yeah, of course. I want to say, yeah, but it's more complex. Of course, I hope your brain is more complex than a bottle of Coke. I hope so. But what if the faculty of physics invents a kind of invents stuff that is 50 times more complex than all our brains together at this moment? Is that true then? So where is the source of truth if it can change all the time? See, you cannot use your brain if there's no God there. Then we are just bags of stardust, and that's it. And I've never met a bag of stardust who can think, talk, argue, or judge anything. No way, no way. So you're not. Otherwise, you could not listen to me. I often come to Maastricht, and there is a big student home where they live, many rooms, and they paint, maybe you have seen it, maybe they painted there a text, a short text on the wall outside. It said, "We're all stardust." But if that's true, nobody could paint the letters or read the letters or understand the letters at all. So we might be fooling ourselves, right? It's impossible. Okay, the second thing is, I have to go quickly, but we can talk about this for hours, okay? Yeah. Observation already, your senses. How sure can you be if there's no God that I'm here, that we are here, or are we in the matrix? Are you sure you're here? You're not sure you're here? Here's a problem, right? Oh, but he's right. If there's no God and we just bags of stardust, nobody can be sure that your senses give you the right information to see what you see, or that I can be sure that I'm not talking completely nonsense at the moment. Sounds that make no sense. There's no basis for that. There's no basis for it. Only in the Christian worldview there's basis, because there's a God who's the creator, and he says, I'm not only the creator, I am also the sustainer of everything. And the third point, I am the guarantee that your brain is useful. You can use your brain today. Maybe you don't, but you can it. If there's no God, you don't. You cannot use it. So, or your senses. The third one is a very popular one, everybody has to do with it every day, is morality. If there's no God, then there is no good and evil. I am sure you have thought about this before, right? If there's no God, you have heard about C.S. Lewis, the Narnia tales? Yeah, sure you have. He said, if there's no absolute lawgiver, there are no absolute laws, do whatever you want. And about thinking, my first point, he said, if I would not believe in God, I cannot believe in thinking. And think about this, yeah? Deep thoughts this. Morality makes no sense. There is no good and evil. I was talking to a German student in Aachen last year, and he said, sir, there is no good and evil. Can you believe it? Do you believe there's good and evil? He didn't. So I said to him, can I have your phone? He gave his phone. I put it in my pocket. I walked away for 10 meters. I came back. Because in my worldview, it is wrong to steal phones. Because I believe in an absolute lawgiver. But I challenged him and said, if you dare if you are really serious about that, there is no good and evil, and no God, then I can have your money and your keys as well. He didn't like the idea. See, you cannot live practically with the things you sometimes think are true. He couldn't. He lives on the basis of my worldview, and you do too. And if you're a Christian, I live on the basis of your worldview. And everybody does. So let's be clear, there is not such a thing as Holland thinks, as the Western world thinks today, that here is science and here is religion. It's impossible. All the science is based on the existence of God. Otherwise, this whole university makes no sense and has to close its doors immediately. They use it every day. They have to. They have to. You cannot escape, as a fish cannot escape from the ocean. A more difficult one, number 4, is logic. Everybody, you know better than me what logic is, right? The basis of logic, 1 and 1 is 2. The laws of logic, think about it, the laws of logic are immaterial. You cannot buy a box of logic in Eindhoven, I don't think so, no? It's immaterial. It never changes. I hope so for the Technical University of Eindhoven, that logic will never change. Otherwise, you have a big problem. You can start all over again with your studies, right? And thirdly, it's globally. You can do the same studies in New Zealand as here. If there's no God and everything is material, no spiritual things, explain to me where the immaterial laws of logic come from that must have existed before material existed, because material is governed by the laws of logic. And even better, I know one person who is immaterial, never changing, and globally present. It's not you, it's not me, it's God. God is the necessary starting point of all the logic about any study in this country or worldwide. We could not make sense of 1 and 1 is 2 if there's no God. Because a coincidental universe, a chaotic universe, can never come up with beauty or logic. No way. We all start with on the same starting point. We all have the same presuppositions, and that is the existence of the biblical God. Okay, and the last one, one more, 2 more. The uniformity of nature. You all study technical studies on the basis of the law of the uniformity of nature, which means, shortly said, that the future will be like the past. Yeah, gravity usually takes my pen down if I let it go, right? I hope so. But how sure can we be that in the future the thing will not go up? Or stay in the middle? How sure? How sure can we be that gravity will function tomorrow as it did in the past? If there's no God? No way. You will say, yeah, it always happened. I know, but I'm not talking about the past, I'm talking about the future. How sure it can be that it will happen the same, that the laws will not change? There's no way to know. Unless there's the creator who said, I'm the creator and the sustainer of gravity and everything else. So you can, as the Bible says, God says, I am guaranteeing the functioning of the natural environment, my creation. He is the only guarantee that you can continue your studies. And not that logic will not change, or that the laws of nature will change tomorrow. There's no way. If so, take a helmet tonight, because there's no guarantee that you will fly to the ceiling tomorrow morning and you get out of bed. Be careful, right? And the last one, it's only short, of course, it's only introduction to this all, is the value of man. What would be the value of your life if there's no God? €2.75 for the chemicals. That's €5.50 together as 2 cups of coffee. That's why we throw away all the babies. The little bags of stardust has no value. If I made a little mistake and there's a baby, okay, throw it away. That's what Holland does every day, worldwide. Because without God, life has no value. We are just on a rock spinning through the universe for no reason at all. That's the big consequence. The practical, I'm not talking about philosophy here, the practical consequences. If there's no God, then there's no rationality, no morality, no logic, no uniformity of nature, no guarantee for nothing, for the value of your life, nothing. Which is foolish, because you use all those things every day. Me too. Whether you're Christian or not, makes no difference. Everybody starts from the same basis, the same starting point. Is that real time? Wow. Okay. So, conclusion. I'm a Christian because of the impossibility of the contrary. I'm not better than other persons. Of course not. But using the word better means there is some measurement, yeah, an absolute standard. Otherwise, the word better makes no sense. Then it's just a personal opinion. What you think is better for you, fine. Not for me. Then there is no good and evil, right? Nobody could judge anything. So the Christian worldview is based on revelation. As I said before, God is not the conclusion of our arguments, He's the beginning, He's the starting point. A Christian starts there. And with His word. He is there and He has spoken. And therefore, I can say with all my heart, if this book is not true, if the Bible is not true, coming from man and not from God, then there is no truth in this world. So where do you find truth? Here. And more, even more, when I open it, there's a person who said, I am the truth. Truth is not an idea, a concept, a philosophical concept. It's a person who guarantees that you see me now and you know what's good and evil. You can study, use the laws of logic and all the other things we talked about. Yeah, that is the conclusion. If the Bible is not true, there's no true. And I can say, my Bible also says everybody knows that. We don't want to know. You know why? Do you have your driving license? No? Okay, you have your driving license. Yeah? Nobody has his driving license here? Okay, sure. Have you been flashed already by the police? Sure, it will happen one day, I promise you. Sorry, it will happen. It happened a billion times to me. No, but it happened to me. Yeah? Okay, you have to pay. But just imagine that there is somebody there who flashes you every second of your life. Every thought, every word, every deed, from the first to the last day of your life, from the first to the last minute. Who's going to pay for that fine? Jesus did. But that's what the Bible says. Right? And that's the reason why we don't like God. We want to get rid of him. By religion, by science, by philosophy, whatever things. Thousands of theories just for one reason, to get rid of God. But you can't. You can't. You're the same creation. You're the fish in the same ocean, and he is the ocean. He's the ocean. So think about this, because the consequences are huge now, not only for studying and to have a nice debate about those things, but for eternity as well. Because my God said there is heaven and hell. But I loved you so much, he came here to pay your fine, which you could never pay. Religion think they can pay. Do you know the do-it-yourself shop? Yeah, every nation has a do-it-yourself shop. What does the shop say? Do it yourself. Yeah, do it yourself. That's what religion thinks. Catholicism, Islam, and all the others, Google yourself, easy to find out. They say do it yourself. A Christian says, I cannot. I can never pay that fine. I need a Savior. And my Bible says he came here to save you. Not only from the judgment, but also from foolish thinking, impossible presuppositions. And the more I read my Bible, the more I start to understand things. I'm not omniscient. Of course, nobody is. I do not understand everything, but I can account for reasoning. And let me say as last thing, therefore I believe the Christian worldview is the only rational worldview. The rest is absurd. One more story. I was talking to a professor of philosophy in Maastricht, nice young guy. We met twice. And he said, you're right, maybe everything is absurd. If you're just on a rock spinning through the universe for no reason at all, everything is absurd. He's right. He said, but I can live in absurdity for 80 years, he said. He said, sure, if the university keeps paying you, can make it 200 years. if they give you a salary so long, of course. But you cannot die that way. If you die that way, you face the absolute truth, God, that you use now to talk to me, teach your lessons in university, or do anything. And then you're in trouble. So think about it. This is not about philosophy. I'm not showing off what I know. No, I'm not. I'm not important. It's about truth. And some people do not want to know this. When Jesus stood before his judge, he said to Jesus, what is truth? Pilate, if you know your Bible. But what is truth? And Jesus didn't say anything because he said already before, I am the truth. It's the same question today. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. So think about this. What is your ultimate authority? Is it the only possible, or have you come up with some other impossible, not absolute authority? Quite important. Think about this. Thank you.
Yeah, we've got a lot of questions on Slido. We only have time for a couple of them. So I'll ask you for a short answer. After those 2 questions, we'll inform you on how to move on next. Alex, do you choose to believe in an absolute truth, or do you have the idea that you don't have a choice in that matter?
Nobody has. He or she believes in the same absolute truth that I do. Everybody does. There's no way you could escape from it.
All
Sorry.
Right. All right. Well, that's a short answer.
Yeah.
The second question, why must the biblical God be the answer to the question of absolute truth?
Because
why can't it be another sort of God or creator?
Great, good question. I have that question every day. 2 answers. First of all, God says there are no other gods. Yeah? The second answer is that if all the other gods would exist, if you collect them together in this room, they would be too small. And mind this, the Hindus have 300 billion of them, right? A million of gods, incredible. But altogether, they will be too small to give any rational explanation of the reality that we are in now. Nobody of those gods could account for the 6 things, and there are more of course, that we talked about. Nobody. Allah, for instance, could never account for love. If you would be the only person in the world, you would have no idea what love is. For love, you need at the minimum 2 people, right? I don't have to tell you, right? 2 people at the minimum. Yeah, if Allah is alone, he has no idea what love is and relations are. He has no idea. There's no foundation for social life in Islam. But Islam people always start with the Christian God. They will deny that, some, not all, but some will deny that. Only the Christian God, who's the triune God, God the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, is able to know and tell us what love is and what relationship should be.
Yeah, we've got a lot of questions about why Christianity and why the Christian God should be the God. If you're in the room right here and you have these questions and you feel like they're unanswered, we'll be joining Hubble, so you can get a cup of coffee for free with us. You can ask Alex whatever you want. He'll try to answer your questions.
Yeah. Can I say one more thing? One website? You can make a note of this. It gives you many answers to those questions already. ProofThatGodExists.org. ProofThatGodExists, yeah, together.org. It answers a lot of them. Yeah.
All right.
The proof that God exists is this, The proof that God exists is this, that without God, you could not prove anything. Think about this. That's the proof that God exists. Without him, you could not prove anything, not even that you're here.
All right. Yeah, like I said, we're joining Hubble. If you want a free cup of coffee and want to talk right now, it's very possible. We've got a couple of people from Eindhoven where you can ask questions. You can ask Alex, our speaker. It's also important to notice you have some uncover books on your table. If you're interested in these, you can take them with you. We have them in Dutch and English. So if you have a uncover book that's not in your language or your desired language, please look around. We have both of them. It's also very important to know that if you're interested, we have a course on the Monday evening, the Alpha course, in which we explore Christianity. We'll do that in a very nice setting with a lot of people. It's going to be very nice. But if you're interested, please sign up. And as last point, we have a couple of evaluation papers, so you can give some feedback to us. Please let us know what you think of the speaker. Let us know what you think of the lunch. And if you're interested, you can leave your contacts behind so we can contact you for more follow-up conversations. So please take a minute or 2 to fill these evaluation forms in, please.